Ex-bullies of Reddit, what was your turning point? My friend in 8th grade was like, you know what, I'm getting really tired of hanging out with you because all you do is say mean things about other people and you have a bad attitude. It is not attractive at all. And I realized he was right. Not a bully but someone who was bullied. I beat the ever loving it out of my bully. He used to have this habit of jumping on my back and humping me for some reason. He was a senior in high school and I was a freshman. One day I dodged and he went face first into a desk. When he was on the floor I began to stomp on his face. I was saying something too but I forgot what. The bullying ended after that. I was on the receiving side but I can definitely tell you a point in time that made some of them wake up as it were. So some public schools in Australia have one period a week for certain age groups. Mine was for grade 10. To talk you youth group people to help us learn proper sex manners. How to behave in real life. Stuff like that but be super cool about it. And one day the topic of bullying came up and about halfway through. After doing the "this is how it can ruin lives" thing they asked the group who has been bullied. About a dozen put our hands up. Including me. Now I enjoyed these talks so I would be near the front most of the time. And as I'm looking around back as to who else put their hand up out of curiosity, I was starting to notice that my bullies were averting their eyes heads. Not once again was I bullied from another in my grade until I dropped out at the start of G12. To this day, I've gotten 2 apologies. And let me tell you, they meant and still do mean a whole lot, so if you feel sorry for what you've done and have the means, please say it to them. They might even forgive you like I have. We picked on this boy in grades 4 to 5, who was a little different. We would say he smelt and such. Even made a game called Stinky Boy where we all ran away from him. The teacher made me sit with him for the year and I mocked him constantly. One day he invited me to his birthday. I was confused but still went. Turns out he thought I was his best friend and gave me one of 5 special sleepover invitations. He invited all of my friend group at the time, all of which made fun of him. I was the only kid out of our class of 30 he had invited to show up to this poor kid's birthday. He was so happy to see me. We played games all night and I had so much fun with him. Turns out the reason we thought he was smelly was because he had to wear the same pair of old cloths because his single father couldn't afford much else. Did I mention that his dad said to me that he had heard so much about me and how his son was so happy to have a friend like me? He even called my parents to tell them how happy he was that his son had finally found a friend. I hung out with him every snack time after that. Now in my final year of school I be sure to ask him what's up when I see him in the school as we grew apart and he finally found friends after I introduced him to some people. Looking back it makes me sad that kids can be so cruel. In middle school, me and another girl hit off really well because we both shared a love for video games and anime, and we always stuck up for each other because we did get teased a little for our hobbies. Fast forward to high school. I started hanging out with a group of cool girls, and they always made fun of my friend. Because I was with them, I thought it was okay to do it too. So I also teased her and left her out in a lot of my activities. This continued on for 2 years. And in the middle of our junior year she sent me a text message that made me reconsider probably every single life decision I've made. Hey burb brain, I've known you for almost 5 years and have always considered you as my best friend. But I know people move on and drift. That being said, if you don't want to hang out with me anymore, I wish you told me to my face instead of visibly moving away from me and mocking me. I wish you all the best. I sat on that for weeks and weeks. And finally during senior year, I left that group of girls, who I later found were not so cool, and decided to apologize to my friend. I said I was an idiot and I was so concerned with high school popularity I threw away probably my most important friendships. It's been another 5 years since then, and she and I are still really close. It's one point in our lives we don't talk about because I'm still really ashamed about it. But I'm glad she's forgiven me and has become one of my most supportive friends today. It, predominantly male bullies. As a girl who was mercilessly bullied in high school, makes me sad that most never realize or own up to their behavior. Girl bullying is awful. I bullied this one boy and one girl when I was a kid. Don't know why really, I simply did. The boy was younger than me and I made him go home every time I saw him at the playground. If he wouldn't, I'd slap him around a bit until he did. The girl was my age and much bigger than me, but I was still the bully. I stopped bullying the boy on his first day of school, my first day of 3rd grade. He saw me in the schoolyard and immediately started crying and ran inside. That's when I realized he was actually afraid of me and the bullying stopped being funny. The girl got me off bullying for good. We were at a 7-day vacation out of town, and I tortured that poor girl for days. Called her names, pulled boards from under her mattress so she would fall, rubbed toothpaste on her hands while she was sleeping. All kinds of nasty shit. On the 5th day she finally had enough and just walked away. A 10-year-old kid walked away on her own into the woods. No one could find her the whole day. I actually got really scared that something would happen to her because of me. She finally appeared in the evening, alive and well. She was hiding nearby and watched us look for her the whole day. Only came out when she got hungry. I never bullied anyone mentally or physically ever again. I was one mean kid. So many of the bullies on here are only half owning their actions. Unfortunately, you haven't had the turning point. If you're still excusing your behavior, my friend was a bad influence on me. I was with a group. I was usually a nice kid. I wasn't really a bully. And the most ridiculous excuse I've read on this thread. It felt like my hand would punch him on its own. Well done to the ex-bullies who are actually admitting to and owning their actions. That takes true balls. Not me, but this guy who came in for tech support at my uni's library went on about how he bullied the bullies. Stopped when he realized that those guys were like that because of household issues. I have a feeling this will hit close to home for some people. In grade school I was kind of a bully. I say kind of, because it was mostly just kid stuff and I wasn't vindictive about it like some of the kids in school were. But nonetheless I was not a stellar person. In about 6th or 7th grade, my mom got cancer. For a few years, it felt like nothing could ever go right for me, and it felt like it was never my fault. In high school, once most of these things had passed, and I was back to my normal semi-bullying ways, an older friend of mine, who I had confided in during the rough years, put it this way: you know the feeling when everything seems like it's going against you and you had no hand in causing it? That's what kids that get bullied constantly feel like. Why are they refused the right to enjoy their interests and do what they want? I was flabbergasted. For weeks I went around the high school apologizing to kids I had bullied because I felt like such a piece of it. Realizing that bullying people doesn't make others like you, I learned relevantly fast. A semester of high school, and I apologized to the person who I bullied. After that we became best friends and kinda laugh about it. Hamlet. Our English teacher explained what the queen meant when she said methinks the lady doth protest too much. Anyways, I was notorious for picking on gay kids, which meant everyone must think I am a closeted gay overcompensating. Long story short, I gave up bullying because it was too gay. I'm not sure I was much of a bully, but I was kind of an asshole when I was a kid. Had no problem picking on other kids. In my circle of friends when I was in 5th grade there was one who I picked on and teased a lot. Once I got him so mad he called me out for a fight after school. So we fought in the breezeway by the school. It was mostly lame kid stuff, grappling and at talk. At one point he had me in a sort of headlock and I reached my arm over and punched him in the face. Then twisted out of the hold, pinned him on the ground. He didn't submit until one of the other kids found some dog it and stuck it under his face. Anyway, that whole thing was way beyond what I ever wanted. The feeling of my fist on his face. I didn't ever want to do that again to anyone. And I respected him a lot for not putting up with my it, and for how long he held out. I did a lot of thinking and changed how I treated people. And I never got into a physical fight with anyone after that. In his case, I think he took it different. Started lifting weights and getting strong. We made up and stayed in the same circle of friends. And by 8th grade he was pretty bulked up and could have kicked my ass anytime if he wanted. But we got along. One of my best friends. Not generally a bully, just with this one kid. Like a lot of the others posting, I didn't even realize how much it was bothering him. For me, it was just a little bit of joking around. One day we were all playing a game of tag or something like that, and he deliberately set up an ambush for me. I was bigger and faster than him so he never had a chance. I instinctively took one shot at him, hit him in the stomach. but the fact that he went so far out of his way to set up the whole encounter kind of made me realize that I was the problem here. And the fight didn't go beyond that. We didn't become best friends or anything afterwards. But I left him alone after and we seemed to be okay. When my victim ignored me, after that, there was nothing I could do, so I just went away. I started to realize that the isolation I felt was caused by my own actions, and surprisingly I noticed that people were much friendlier and kinder when I started treating them with dignity and respect. I bullied my male classmates throughout elementary school because I wanted people to think I was strong. I'm female and grew up with brothers, so everything came down to me being better than the boys. One day in 5th grade, my group of girlfriends, also bullies, turned on me and verbally and physically hurt me. I realized what it was like to be on the other side and started sticking up for the kids who were bullied instead. I hate to use this phrase, but I guess I was one of the popular kids in high school, meaning I just knew a lot of people from sports and other clubs that branched out across multiple grades. From grades 9-12 I used this popularity to make some pretty relentless jokes against people I didn't like or did genuinely like. I would say outrageously offside things about people, and I unfortunately have the ability to determine what an individual's biggest insecurity is, and I'd go for that. I never physically hurt anyone, but I know I hurt a lot of feelings by saying jokes that were almost never warranted. I guess my turning point was maturing. Once I left the bubble that is high school, I realized how awful I had been to my peers without any repercussions for myself. One of the things I've been thinking about a lot lately is 10 or 20 years in the future when these people are gonna flip through their yearbook and see my photo and tell their spouse or kid how big of a douche I was, and you know what? They'd be absolutely right to do that. I'm ashamed of who I was and have actively been trying to become a friendlier and kinder member of society. I still deal with a lot of the same insecurities I struggled with years ago, but I've realized now that my problems aren't a reason to treat others like it. If I could do it all again, I'd do it a lot differently. I never want to be that person again. Upvoted as a person that got bullied a lot. I would like to read it. Got my ass kicked and thrown over a fence. Shifted my perspective a skosh. I was the bullied guy in this story. We had our 20-year reunion a while ago, and I made an offhanded comment to a classmate when I saw him for the first time at the party. Good to see you, Mark. You were always my favorite bully. TLDR. He ended up sobbing on my shoulder with honest to God remorse within 30 minutes. An ex told me right before dumping me that I was a huge asshole. Not just to her but to people in general. I really reevaluated how I was treating others after that. Realized I had a lot of people to apologize to, but I could at least redeem myself. Yeah, my bullies won't be on here. I see them on social media. They also include my older brother, and none of them changed. I guess not everyone matures. Also, this wasn't America, it was North Africa, and to survive as a guy was to beat up others or get beaten up yourself. There was this kid much smaller than me that would constantly watch FNAF and Undertale videos. I hated the games and still hate them, but one day he drew one of the characters and I couldn't help but love the drawing. It was that good. I don't like the games, but I don't pick on anyone for liking something that I don't anymore. There was a girl in my science class who was kinda a social outcast but super clever. I bullied her because 1. I was jealous at how easy she found school. 2. My friend was bullying too. When I left secondary school I grew up a lot and realized I was really nasty to her for no reason. Ended up contacting her and apologizing. She's now training to be a doctor, and I genuinely wish the best for her. A typical not a answer, but a kid I was good friends with in elementary middle school turned out to be a huge douche in high school and college. Extremely good soccer player and good looking, just got to his head. Then he started partying and got into drugs in college since he was one of the cool kids. In the end he ended up with nerve damage in his legs from ODing and passing out with something on top of them. He's in a wheelchair now, as much of an ass as he turned into at one point. Every time I've run into him since that incident he's extremely nice and humble and is trying to salvage what's left of the life he threw away. I picked on a few kids when I was younger. Was never a ringleader, but I absolutely followed the pack if one kid was unpopular. One of them I was a real attention to for years. We were friends, but once we started hanging out with girls they didn't like him, and I took part in making his life hell for a little while. One day it was as simple as someone calling me out on it. I had no response. No reason for saying all the nasty things I said or bad I did. After that I just started being nice and not a prick. It honestly made me a much better person. And I sincerely apologized to him one time. He even went off on me saying he didn't understand how I took a girl's side over his and all that. I felt like it after that, but he was right. After the apology we stayed good friends. Even moved out together with a mutual friend after college. We're still roommates now. I still feel bad thinking back on it, but I am much nicer to people nowadays. Especially those that seem unpopular or a little weird. Everyone needs friends. About sophomore year I realized how duck the culture was in my school. We had a group of accepted kids. Generally, the accepted were either rich, athletic, or good looking. No in between. I was in the accepted group, and bullying anybody less than us was the norm. We had a kid in football who was so poor. He would wear the same blue jeans to practice every day. We called him Blue Jeans. He was also mentally handicapped. The older guys would duck with him constantly. A major example of this were two guys, jacked, butt naked, twerking on him in stormtrooper masks. Bare man ass all in his face. Another was a friend of mine choke slamming him in practice. And Blue Jeans running crying to the locker room. I soon distanced myself from the crowd and got shunned by many. I began calling people out on their bullet. If anyone on here is being bullied, especially in high school, just remember this isn't the rest of your life. The people that bully you are nobodies and probably internally hate themselves. Just focus on you and how you want your future to be. Basically what I'm saying is, your bullies can suck your ass. Duck high school in rural Oklahoma, man. I was the girl who said what everyone was thinking, but actually what I was saying was mean and cruel and not helpful. As an adult there's so much mean stuff I said or did that surfaces when I'm trying to go to sleep. Hurt people hurt people. I came from a family situation where I was hurt, so I made sure to hurt everyone else. It took me losing a lot of friends, my one true love, and growing into an adult with frequent altercations before I was able to recognize my attitude for what it was, rotten. There wasn't one single moment but a series of small opportunities to present myself differently and be positive. I guess at a certain point I wanted to feel love instead of always feeling hurt by self-inflicted wounds. I wanted to be perceived differently, because once you establish yourself as a mean girl, in high school, the people around you kind of enforce that. For me that carried on into adulthood, and I got to a point where I had to make a decision between two paths, and one was difficult and the other was significantly more loving and positive, but required me to learn to think positive thoughts. I still have to reframe my perceptions manually, but the change is sticking. Sometimes I'm shocked that people like me, because for so long I was that friend that no one really liked but was still invited to outings. Like the token bully. But then I remember it's because I'm not trying to be a D to everyone anymore. When I was in 3rd grade I was moving to another town, and on my last day the teacher said to me, hopefully you will be replaced with a nicer kid. Because it was so long ago I don't remember the details, but I was just confused. I never saw myself as a mean person, not even in the slightest. It did however make me more aware, just in case I was doing something that I was unknowingly doing which was mean. I grew up and realized that being resentful of people around me being more successful than me was my way of hiding my failings at life by bullying people into failing to try and keep them at my level. In other words, I was an immature asshole who tried to keep those around me at my level. I moved right around the time that puberty hit, and it turned out I'm actually a very shy person, so I didn't have any friends and haven't since. And bullying doesn't work if you're alone. I'd also always hypocritically despised bullying and finally realized what I'd been doing once I was no longer in the middle of it. Don't mind me, just looking for that bastard Chad in this thread. Jesus. I wish so bad every day that I could tell everyone that I picked on that. I'm so sorry for being so itty. I was bullied myself and it made me mean.